The bridge of the Vryn flagship times Eternal Dawn times shook violently as another plasma blast tore through its shields. Commander Thalrix gripped his console, watching the tactical display with growing despair. The Kalthos swarm had them surrounded. Hundreds of bioships swarmed like insects, each one carrying thousands of warriors, bred for one purpose: destruction. "Shields at 20%, reported his tactical officer, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Thalrix looked at the display showing his fleet. 23 ships remained from the original 100. The Kalthos had been relentless. This sector would fall within hours. Then the Vryn homeworld would be next. He had failed his people. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange," the sensor officer said, his antenna twitching in confusion. "There's a vessel emerging from hyperspace. Configuration unknown. Energy signatures are... I've never seen readings like this. Is it Kalthos reinforcements?" Thalrix asked, his heart sinking even further. "No, sir. The ship doesn't match any known design in our database. It's not Vryn, not Kalthos, not any of the allied species." "There's a transmission coming through." Static filled the bridge speakers. Then a voice, clear and strong, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "This is the Terran Coalition vessel, times Indomitable Asterisk. All hostile forces are ordered to cease fire immediately. This is your only warning. Just Comtenter." The bridge went silent. Thalrix felt his blood run cold. "Terran? Did he say Terran? Mut?" His first officer's eyes widened. "Sir, that's impossible. Terrans are just stories. The myth speakers from the old warnings. They destroyed themselves thousands of years ago." The mysterious vessel appeared on their view screens. It was massive, easily twice the size of the flagship, with smooth metallic surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Weapon ports lined its hull like the scales of a predator. The ship moved with precision that made Vryn vessels look clumsy by comparison. "The Kalthos aren't stopping," the tactical officer reported. "They're ignoring the transmission. 3 bioships are breaking formation to attack the new vessel." Thalrix watched in horror as the Kalthos war beasts rushed toward the human ship. Each war beast was the size of a small moon, covered in organic armor that could withstand sustained bombardment. He had seen them tear through battle stations like they were made of paper. The human vessel didn't move. It simply waited. Then it fired. Brilliant blue beams of energy lanced out from the times Indomitable Asterisk. They didn't spread or dissipate like normal weapons. They struck with surgical precision. And where they hit, the war beasts simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not destroyed. They vanished in bursts of light, molecular bonds torn apart at the fundamental level. 3 war beasts died in 3 seconds. The Kalthos swarm hesitated. Thalrix had never seen them hesitate before. They bred fear out of their warriors. But now they paused, their formation breaking. "Sir, the human vessel is hailing us directly," the communications officer said, his voice shaking. "Put them through," Thalrix ordered. The main view screen changed. A human face appeared. The creature looked almost similar to several species in the galaxy, but different in subtle ways. 2 eyes. Not 3. No antenna. Hair on the head in a dark color. The skin was smooth and brown. The face was young, but the eyes were old, carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "I am Captain Han Minho of the Terran Coalition," the human said. His voice was calm, almost gentle, which somehow made him more frightening. "You are Commander Thalrix of the Vryn Empire. Your fleet is dying. Your homeworld is threatened. We are here to help, if you will accept it. You're real," Thalrix whispered. "The stories said you destroyed yourselves. The old warnings said humanity was too dangerous to survive." Captain Han's expression didn't change. "We almost did destroy ourselves. We came very close. But we learned. We changed. We've been watching the galaxy from a distance, rebuilding, hoping we would never need to return. But this war has gone too far. Too many are dying. We cannot stand by any longer. The Kalthos won't stop, Thalrix said, feeling hope for the first time in months. They believe evolution is survival. Only the strong deserve to live. They won't negotiate. Right. Then we'll teach them differently, Captain Han said. Another explosion rocked the Vryn flagship. Stand down your weapons, Commander. Pull your fleet back to a safe distance. We'll handle this. There are hundreds of them, Thalrix protested. You're just one ship. For the first time, Captain Han smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Commander, your myths about humanity got many things wrong. But they got one thing right. When we fight to win. Now pull your ships back. This is about to get dangerous. The transmission ended. Thalrix stared at the screen, then at his tactical display. Every instinct told him to retreat, but another part of him, the part that remembered the old stories told to frighten young Vryn children, wanted to watch. All ships, fall back to rally point Theta, he ordered. Maintain sensor lock on the human vessel. I want everything recorded. The Vryn fleet limped away from the combat zone. The Kalthos swarm, seeing them retreat, surged forward with renewed fury. Hundreds of bioships rushed toward the lone human vessel. The Times, indomitable Times, didn't retreat. Instead, it accelerated directly into the swarm. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ship moved like nothing Thalrix had ever seen. It dodged and weaved through the Kalthos formation with impossible precision. Its weapons fired in devastating patterns, each shot carefully calculated for maximum effect. Point defense systems that could track thousands of targets simultaneously shredded Kalthos fighter craft. But it wasn't just the technology. It was the strategy. The humans fought like they understood the Kalthos better than the Kalthos understood themselves. Every weakness was exploited. Every opening was used. The human ship fought with the creativity of intelligence and the relentlessness of a machine. Within 10 minutes, the Kalthos swarm was in full retreat. 50 bioships destroyed. Hundreds of fighters eliminated. The survivors fled into hyperspace. Their formations shattered. The human vessel settled into a stable orbit near the Vryn fleet. It had taken some damage, but nothing critical. It had faced impossible odds and won decisively. Captain Han's face appeared on screen again. Commander Thalrix, we have much to discuss. But first, your wounded need attention. We're transmitting medical data that might help. May we come aboard your flagship? It's time humanity properly introduced itself to the galaxy. Thalrix looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him with expressions of shock, fear, and wonder. The myth speakers were real. The humans had returned. Everything was about to change. Permission granted, Captain, Thalrix said quietly. Welcome back to the galaxy. The neutral station orbited a dead world, chosen specifically because it belonged to no one. Inside the main conference hall, representatives from 3 species sat around a circular table, studying each other with curiosity and suspicion. Captain Han Minho sat with his hands folded, flanked by Dr. Yoon Sera and Admiral Kwon Junho. Across from them, Ambassador Thalrix represented the Vryn Empire, his blue skin seeming to glow under the station's lights. The Kalthos delegation was smaller, just 3 individuals including their hive speaker Korvas, whose insectoid features made him difficult to read. Let me understand this correctly, Korvas said, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. You claim to have been watching our conflict for decades, and only now, you choose to interfere? Admiral Kwon leaned forward. He was older than Captain Han, with gray hair and scars visible on his neck. We were watching the entire galaxy. After our own wars nearly destroyed us, we made a choice. Isolation, rebuilding, learning to be better than we were. We swore we would not involve ourselves in galactic affairs unless absolutely necessary. And you decided our war met that threshold? Thalrix asked. Dr. Yoon Sera spoke for the first time. She was younger than the others, wearing the simple uniform of the Terran Science Division. Genocide always meets that threshold. We've studied your conflict for 70 years. What began as a territorial dispute has become mutual extinction. Neither side remembers why the fighting started. You just keep killing each other because that's all you know how to do anymore. The bluntness of her words made both alien delegations shift uncomfortably. The Kalthos attacked our colonies first, Thalrix protested. The Vryn seized our breeding grounds, Korvas countered immediately. And before that? Captain Han asked quietly. What happened before those incidents? Can either of you tell me the actual origin of this war? Silence filled the room. Both aliens looked uncertain. That's what we thought, Dr. Yoon said. We've been accessing your historical databases. The records get confused about 300 years ago. Contradictory. Altered. Someone wanted this war to happen, and they didn't want anyone to remember why. That's a serious accusation, Thalrix said. Do you have proof? And we're working on it, Admiral Kwan replied. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to discuss the immediate situation. Both of your civilizations are dying. The Vryn have lost 40% of their territory. The Kalthos population has dropped by half. How much longer can you sustain this? Enna. Rate. Korvas's antennae twitched. We will fight until we evolve beyond the need for peace. That is our way. Only the strong deserve survival. Your way is suicide, Dr. Yoon said flatly. We've seen it before. Species destroy themselves with exactly that philosophy. Like you almost did? Korvas asked. There was no malice in his voice, just genuine curiosity. Captain Han nodded slowly. Yes. Exactly like we almost did. We built weapons that could crack planets. We fought wars over ideas and resources until billions died. We poisoned our own world. We came within hours of total nuclear annihilation. And you know what saved us? What? Thalrix asked, leaning forward. We got tired. Captain Han said simply. Not weak. Tired. Tired of burying our children. Tired of seeing cities turn to ash. Tired of wondering if each day would be our last. So we stopped. It wasn't easy. It took decades. Some groups refused. We had to fight them too. But eventually, we learned that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being smart enough to know when fighting helps and when it destroys. Beautiful philosophy, Korvas said. But philosophy doesn't win wars. No, but it prevents them, Admiral Kwan said. We didn't come here to pick sides. We came here to end this war. We're offering our services as mediators, peacekeepers, whatever you need. But we will not help either of you destroy the other. The Kalthos will never agree to peace, Thalrix said bitterly. They see it as weakness. The Vryn will never agree to peace, Korvas replied. They see us as monsters. Dr. Yoon stood up abruptly. Then maybe you both deserve to die. The room went silent. Even Admiral Kwan looked surprised. Sarah, Captain Han said quietly. No, she continued, her voice passionate. I'm tired of this. We left Earth. We crossed dozens of light years. We revealed ourselves to a galaxy that thought we were extinct, all to help species too stubborn to save themselves. If you want to keep killing each other, fine. But don't waste our time pretending you want peace. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. Captain Han was on his feet immediately, touching a device on his wrist. What's happening? A voice responded, crackling with static. Captain, we have hostile contacts. 4 Kalthos stealth fighters just materialized inside the station perimeter. They're heading for the conference level. This is an assassination attempt. Korvas stood so quickly his chair fell over. This is not sanctioned by the Hive Council. There are radicals who oppose these talks. Doesn't matter who sent them. Admiral Kwan said, moving toward the door. We need to evacuate. The conference room doors exploded inward. Kalthos warriors burst through, their bodies armored with biological plates, weapons grown from their own limbs. They moved with terrifying speed. What happened next occurred so fast that the aliens could barely process it. A figure appeared from the side entrance, moving with fluid grace. Lieutenant Park Ji-woo had been waiting in the adjacent security room. She wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, but she moved like violence personified. The first Kalthos warrior aimed its bioweapon at Captain Han. Park Ji-woo crossed the distance in 2 strides, faster than seemed possible for a creature her size. She grabbed the warrior's weapon arm, twisted with precise leverage, and the limb snapped. The warrior's scream was cut short as she struck its throat with her palm, crushing its breathing passage. The second warrior tried to tackle her. She rolled with the impact, using the creature's own momentum to flip it over her shoulder. It crashed into the wall hard enough to crack its carapace. She finished it with a strike to the nerve cluster at the base of its skull. The third and fourth warriors attacked together, learning from their companions' failures. Park Ji-woo fought them both, simultaneously. She blocked, struck, dodged, and countered with movements that flowed like water. Her hands became weapons. Her body became a tool of devastating efficiency. Within 30 seconds, all 4 Kalthos warriors were either dead or incapacitated. Park Ji-woo stood in the center of the room, breathing slightly harder, but otherwise unaffected. She looked at the shocked alien delegations and gave a small bow. "The area is secure, Captain." "Thank you, Lieutenant," Captain Han said calmly, as if watching someone kill 4 trained warriors barehanded was completely normal. Thalrix stared at the human woman with something close to terror. She just killed 4 Kalthos assault warriors without weapons. Without armor. I've seen entire squads die fighting just one of them. "Every human in our military trains for combat," Admiral Kwan explained. "It's not that we enjoy violence. We've just learned that peace must sometimes be defended with strength." Korvas looked at his fallen warriors with new eyes. He turned to Captain Han. "Perhaps," Captain Han agreed. "But words are easy. Let's see if you mean them. Both of you. We're not asking you to become friends. We're asking you to stop dying. Will you work with us, or not?" Thalrix and Korvas looked at each other across the table. Centuries of hatred hung between them. But for the first time, something else was there too. A tiny spark of possibility. "We will listen," Thalrix said finally. "As will we," Korvas added. Captain Han nodded. "Then let's begin." Colonel Bae Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Vrin cruiser Times, Storm's Edge *, studying the tactical display with experienced eyes. Around him, Vrin officers worked at their stations, still getting used to having humans among them. "The colony fleet is 3 hours ahead," General Valkar said, pointing at the display with a clawed hand. 5 civilian transport ships, carrying 2 million Vrin refugees. The Kalthos battle group will intercept them in 4 hours. We cannot reach them in time. Bae studied the distances, the projected paths, the numbers. The Vrin were right. With conventional approaches, those refugees would die. But humans didn't always use conventional approaches. "What's the weapons loadout on your fastest fighters?" Bae asked. "Light plasma cannons. Enough for hit-and-run attacks, but nothing that could damage a Kalthos capital ship," Valkar replied. "Because we're not going to damage the capital ships," Bae said. "We're going to convince them they don't want to fight." An hour later, Captain Lee Nari sat in the cockpit of her modified Terran starfighter, leading a squadron of 20 human pilots. Behind them flew 40 Vrin fighters, their pilots nervously following the humans' lead. "All fighters, this is Falcon 1, Nari said into her comm. "Remember the plan. We're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Make them think we're crazier than they are. On Tom. Falcon 1, this is Vrin flight leader." A voice crackled over the comm. "I still don't understand this plan. You want us to attack ships 10 times our size with light weapons?" "Exactly," Nari confirmed. "Trust me. I've studied Kalthos psychology. They respect strength and aggression. They don't respect hesitation. We're going to make them hesitate. Nari confirmed. The fighter group dropped out of hyperspace directly in front of the Kalthos battle group. 12 massive bioships turned their weapons toward the tiny fighters. On any other day, it would have been suicide. All fighters, engage, Nari ordered. The human and Vryn fighters scattered into complex patterns, weaving between the Kalthos ships. They didn't try to run. They attacked. Their light weapons couldn't penetrate the heavy armor, but they targeted sensors, communication arrays, weapon targeting systems. They flew so close to the bioships that the massive vessels couldn't safely fire their main weapons without hitting each other. More importantly, they broadcast on all frequencies. Music, human war songs, defiant messages. They made noise and chaos. They're going insane, the Vryn flight leader said, watching 3 human fighters perform impossible maneuvers around a Kalthos cruiser's command tower. This shouldn't work, but it is working, Nari replied, checking her sensors. Look, the Kalthos group is slowing down. They're reorganizing to deal with us. And that means the refugee fleet is getting away. Nari replied. Well, Nari replied, for 30 minutes. The fighters danced with death. 2 Vryn fighters were destroyed. 1 human fighter took critical damage and had to withdraw. But they held the Kalthos' attention. By the time the bioships finally adapted their tactics to the fighters' unconventional approach, the refugee fleet had escaped to safety. All fighters, break off and retreat, Nari ordered. We did good today. Meanwhile, on the surface of a contested world, Sergeant Im-Doyun crouched behind rubble with his squad of Marines. They were holding a vital communications facility against overwhelming Kalthos ground forces. The structure was important because it coordinated the evacuation of civilian populations from the entire sector. Sergeant, we're down to 40% ammunition, Corporal Shin Min-soo reported. We can't hold much longer. Do-yoon looked at his 20 Marines. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. They were exhausted, wounded, running low on supplies. The proper military decision would be to retreat and preserve the force. But if they retreated, the communication network would fall. The evacuations would turn chaotic. Thousands would die. We hold, Do-yoon said simply. Sergeant, there are hundreds of them. Private Cha Eun-ji said. She was the youngest in the squad, barely 20 years old. Her face was covered in dust and dried blood from a cut above her eye. I know, Do-yoon replied. But think about what we're protecting. Out there, somewhere, families are boarding evacuation ships because we're keeping this facility running. Children getting to safety because we're standing here. Every minute we hold is lives saved. So we hold. The Marines looked at him, then at each other. They were scared. They were tired. But they understood. Sergeant, if we're going to die here, we might as well make it interesting, Corporal Shin said with a grim smile. Who said anything about dying? Do-yoon replied. I said we hold. I didn't say how. He activated his comm to the tactical network. This is Ground Team 7. We're requesting artillery strike on our position. Danger close. Repeat. Danger close. Ground Team 7. That's suicide, the fire control officer responded. No, it's tactical, Do-yoon corrected. We have good cover in this structure. The Kalthos are massing in the open for their next assault. Hit them with everything. And make it rain. 30 seconds later, the sky lit up with fire. Human artillery shells, launched from positions 20 kilometers away, fell like meteors. The Kalthos assault formations were caught in the open. The bombardment was devastating. Do-yoon and his squad huddled in the reinforced bunker section of the facility, feeling the building shake with each impact. When the bombardment ended, they emerged to find the Kalthos assault broken. That's the human way, Do-yoon said, checking his weapon. When you can't win with what you have, change the rules. Now, we've got maybe an hour before they regroup. Let's make sure this facility stays operational. Back in space, General Velkar watched footage of both operations in stunned silence. His tactical staff stood around him, equally amazed. They held that facility with 20 soldiers against a force of 300, one officer said. That should be impossible. They saved our refugee fleet with light fighters against capital ships. Another added. Also, impossible. Velkar turned to Colonel Bay, who had returned from coordinating the operations. Your people fight like they're insane. No offense intended. Bay smiled. None taken. We've been called worse. But we're not insane. We're just creative. Your people have been fighting this war for so long that you've forgotten how to improvise. You follow the rules of war. The problem is, winning sometimes requires breaking those rules. The Kalthos are learning to fear you, Velkar said. Our intelligence reports say they're changing their tactics, becoming more cautious. Good, Bay replied. Fear can be useful. But we don't want them to fear us so much that they become desperate. We want them to respect us enough to listen when we talk about peace. Over the next weeks, human forces fought alongside both Vryn and Kalthos units in limited operations, always positioning themselves as peacekeepers rather than conquerors. They shared tactics, technology, and most importantly, philosophy. Lieutenant Park Ji-woo ran training sessions teaching Vryn soldiers hand-to-hand combat. Captain Lee Nari taught Kalthos pilots about unconventional fighter tactics. Sergeant Im Do-yoon showed mixed units how to hold impossible positions through pure determination and creative thinking. Slowly, something remarkable began happening. Vryn and Kalthos soldiers who trained under human instruction started seeing each other differently, not as monsters or enemies, but as fellow warriors facing similar challenges. They began sharing their own tactical knowledge. A Vryn shield formation here. A Kalthos mobility technique there. Colonel Bay watched it happen with cautious optimism. He stood with General Velkar on an observation deck, looking down at a training yard where Vryn and Kalthos soldiers practiced together under human supervision. Do you think it will last? Velkar asked. This cooperation? Honestly, I don't know, Bay admitted. Military cooperation is easier than political peace. Soldiers understand that survival requires working together. Politicians understand that power requires division. The real test comes when the fighting stops, and everyone has to figure out what comes next. But you're hopeful, Bay nodded. I've seen species come back from worse, including my own. Hope is hard work. It requires constant effort. But yes, I'm hopeful. An alarm suddenly blared across the facility. Both officers rushed to the nearest command center. What's happening? Velkar demanded. The tactical officer looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, we're getting reports from multiple sectors. A massive fleet is forming. Not Vryn, not Kalthos. Unknown configuration. They're broadcasting a signal on all frequencies. Put it on speakers, Bay ordered. Static filled the room. Then a cold, mechanical voice. This experiment has concluded. All organic units will be terminated. Peace is inefficient. Conflict is control. Resume primary directives. Bay felt his blood run cold. It's not over. Whatever started this war is still out there, and it's not happy we're ending it. Dr. Nam Soo-jin carefully brushed dust away from the ancient console, her hands steady despite her excitement. The ruins stretched around her in every direction, a massive complex buried beneath the surface of an uninhabited world. The architecture was unlike anything in current galactic civilization. It was older, stranger, and carried an air of terrible purpose. This is incredible, she whispered into her recorder. The structure predates both Vryn and Kalthos civilizations by at least 2,000 years. The technology is advanced beyond anything we've seen outside of Earth. 7. Vryn. We got 2 RD 4. Commander Choi Taejin watched from the entrance, his hand resting on his sidearm. He didn't like ruins. Too many places for threats to hide. How much longer, Doctor? Command wants us back at base before nightfall. Just a few more minutes, Sujin said, not looking up. I think I can activate this console. If I'm right about the power source, the data might still be intact. Behind them, Agent Kang Woojin worked on a separate section of the ruins, setting up scanning equipment. He was intelligence, not science, but he understood the importance of what they were finding. The ruins had been discovered by accident when human deep-range sensors picked up unusual energy signatures. Initial investigation suggested this place might hold answers about the war. Sujin made a final adjustment, and the console hummed to life. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing text in a language none of them recognized. But the translation algorithms in her equipment worked quickly, feeding the information to her tablet. What she read made her heart sink. "Oh no," she said softly. "Oh, this is bad." "What did you find?" Choi asked, moving closer. Sujin's hands shook as she scrolled through the data. "It's all here. The complete history. The Vryn and Kalthos didn't start fighting because of territory, or resources, or evolution. They were made to fight. This was all planned." "Explain," Woojin said, joining them at the console. "This facility belonged to a species called the Architects," Sujin said, her voice hollow. "They existed thousands of years ago. They were incredibly advanced, but they had a problem. They wanted to control resource-rich sectors of the galaxy, but they didn't have enough population to occupy them all. So, they created a solution." She pulled up images from the data files. Star maps, biological charts, detailed plans spanning centuries. The architects found two compatible species, the Vryn and the Kalthos. Sujin continued. They were actually cousin species, evolved from the same base genetic line on neighboring worlds. The architects studied them, manipulated them, and then set them against each other. "How?" Choi asked. Sujin brought up more files. They started with small incidents. A destroyed colony here, evidence left pointing to the other species. A stolen artifact there, with false intelligence about who took it. They hacked into databases, altered historical records, planted false memories using advanced technology. Over decades, they built up mutual hatred based on lies. But why? "Control," Sujin said bitterly. While the Vryn and Kalthos fought each other, the architects moved in and took the resources they wanted. The two species were so busy destroying each other, they never noticed a third party stealing everything valuable. It was the perfect crime, and when the war became self-sustaining, when the hatred was deep enough that it didn't need outside manipulation anymore, the architects moved on to other sectors. "What happened to these architects?" Choi asked. Sujin checked the data. "They're gone. Extinct. It looks like they encountered someone who didn't appreciate their methods. About 400 years ago, they tried their manipulation tactics on a species that fought back. The architects were destroyed in that conflict." "Let me guess," Woojin said quietly. "They tried to manipulate humanity." Sujin nodded. "Yes. The architects attempted to create a civil war on Earth during our early space age. They wanted to control our solar system's resources. But we figured out what they were doing. We tracked them down. And we ended them. That's the real reason we went into isolation, not just because of our own wars, but because we realized the galaxy was more dangerous and manipulative than we'd imagined. So this is why the myths about humanity were so dark," Choi said, understanding dawning. "The architects were terrified of us. They spread warnings about humanity being dangerous, trying to make sure no one would ever contact us or investigate what happened to them." "Exactly," Sujin confirmed. "They painted us as self-destructive monsters, when in reality, we were the first species to see through their manipulations and fight back." Woojin was working on his own equipment, scanning the facility's network. "There's more," he said grimly. "The architects might be gone, but they left something behind. Automated systems, AI constructs designed to continue their work. I'm picking up signals, broadcasting from this facility. They've been active this entire time. Subtly. Maintaining the Vrin-Kalthos conflict. Can you shut them down? Choi asked. I can try, but... Woojin paused, his face going pale. They know we're here. The AI systems are aware of our presence. They're activating defensive protocols, and they're sending out a signal. The ground shook. Alarm klaxons blared from their ship parked outside the ruins. Choi touched his comm. What's happening? Commander, we have multiple contacts emerging from underground, the pilot reported. Automated defense drones. Hundreds of them. They're old, but they're still functional. We need to evacuate now. Copy that, Choi said. He grabbed Sujin's arm. Doctor, we need to go. Wait, I need to download all this data. Sujin protested. This is evidence. Proof of what really happened. Do it fast, Choi ordered, while Sujin worked frantically to copy the files. Woojin monitored the AI systems. Commander, you need to see this. The signal the AI sent. It wasn't just activating local defenses. It went out across the galaxy. To both Vrin and Kalthos, extremist groups. What kind of signal? Choi asked. Instructions, Woojin said. Telling them that we're here. Telling them we've discovered the truth. Telling them that if this information spreads, the war will end. The AI is calling for both sides to destroy us, and this facility. It's turning us into a common enemy. How long do we have? Choi demanded. Woojin checked his readings. Based on the nearest extremist fleet positions, maybe 6 hours. Both Vrin and Kalthos hardliners are going to converge on this location, and they're not going to care that we're trying to help. They just know we're a threat to their war. Sujin finished the download, pulling out a data crystal that contained everything the facility had revealed. Got it. This is everything. The truth about the architects. About how the war started. Proof that the Vrin and Kalthos are being manipulated. If we can get this to the right people, we can end this. The facility shook again. The drones were getting closer. Move, Choi ordered. The 3 humans ran through the ancient corridors. Defense drones firing at them from the shadows. They made it to their ship just as the first wave of attackers reached them. The vessel's shields flickered under the assault. But the pilot managed to lift off and escape the immediate area. In orbit, they rendezvoused with the rest of the human expeditionary fleet. Admiral Kwan listened to their report with a grave expression. So the entire war is based on lies, he said finally. And now extremists from both sides are coming to destroy the evidence. Yes, sir, Choi confirmed. We have maybe 5 hours before they arrive. We should evacuate, one of the human captains suggested. We've got the data. We can present it to the moderate factions later. If we leave, the extremists will destroy the ruins, Sujin protested. The facility itself is proof. The data crystal might be dismissed as fabrication, but the physical site is undeniable evidence. 87. The lestability, Admiral Kwan nodded slowly. Dr. Nam is right. If we want peace, we need ironclad proof. That means defending this site. He looked around at his officers. Get me Captain Han, and contact Ambassador Thalrix and Hive Speaker Korvas. Tell them we need their help. Tell them we've discovered why their people have been dying for 300 years. Tell them it's time to end this, but we need to survive the next few hours first. And if they don't come? Someone asked. Admiral Kwan smiled grimly. Then we hold the line ourselves. It won't be the first time humanity stood alone against impossible odds. But I'm betting they'll come. They've been looking for a reason to stop fighting. We're about to give them one. Oh. 1. Oh. On the view screen, the ancient ruins sat on the planet's surface, holding secrets that could change everything. Around them, space was empty and quiet. But in a few hours, it would become a battlefield. The final test of whether peace was possible or whether hatred was too strong to overcome. The space around the ruins world, lit up with hundreds of hyperspace exits, the extremist fleets had arrived. Captain Han Minho watched the tactical display on the Times Indomitable's Times Bridge, counting the hostile contacts. 73 Vryn warships, 85 Kalthos bioships, all dedicated to destroying the truth before it could spread. "Sir, incoming transmission from the extremist Vryn commander," the communications officer reported. "Put it through," Han ordered. A Vryn face appeared on screen, twisted with rage. "Human vessel. You have discovered secrets that were meant to stay buried. You threaten the natural order of this sector. Stand aside or be destroyed with the others." "And what is this natural order?" Han asked calmly. "Endless war? Millions dead for lies? We found the truth about your conflict, about how you were manipulated. Don't you want to know?" "We know all we need to know," the Vryn commander spat. "The Kalthos are the enemy. That is the only truth that matters. Your false peace will weaken us." The transmission ended. A moment later, the Kalthos fleet sent a similar message. They didn't care about truth or manipulation. The war had become their identity. Peace threatened everything they believed about themselves. Lieutenant Park Ji-woo stood at her tactical station, monitoring the defensive perimeter. "Sir, we have 30 human vessels against more than 150 hostiles. The odds are not favorable." "When have the odds ever been favorable?" Han replied. Then he smiled. "Open a channel to all ships in the fleet." When the channel opened, he spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Captain Han Minho, to all Terran Coalition vessels. Behind us is a world holding the truth about this war, evidence that could save millions of lives. In front of us are people so consumed by hatred they would rather die than admit they've been wrong. We cannot reason with them. We cannot negotiate with them. So we will do what humanity has always done when faced with impossible choices. We will stand. We will fight. We will hold the line. Not because we want to, but because peace is worth the cost. All ships, take defensive positions. Protect the ruins at all costs." The human fleet moved into formation, spreading out to create overlapping fields of fire. They were outnumbered 5-1. They were far from home. But they didn't retreat. The extremist fleets attacked. The battle that followed was brutal. Human vessels absorbed devastating damage, their shields flaring as plasma fire and bioweapons struck again and again. They returned fire with precision, focusing on disabling rather than destroying when possible. But the extremists showed no mercy, pushing forward with suicidal determination. On the surface, Dr. Nam Soo-jin worked frantically to broadcast the truth. She had set up transmission equipment in the ruins, sending out the evidence on all frequencies. Historical records, genetic data, the architect's own logs describing their manipulation. She broadcast it all, hoping someone would listen before they were overwhelmed. Commander Choi Tae-jin coordinated ground defenses. He had only 100 Marines against orbital bombardment. They couldn't stop a determined attack, but they could make it difficult. They set up shield generators, defensive positions, and waited. In space, the battle reached a critical point. 5 human vessels were already destroyed. Another 10 had taken critical damage. The Times Indomitable Times was holding the center position, taking fire from multiple directions. "Shields at 15%, Park Ji-woo reported. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. "We can't sustain this much longer, Captain." Han's hands gripped his command chair. He had led these people into this fight. Some of them were dying. More would die. But if they fled now, the extremists would destroy the ruins, and the truth would be lost. How many more millions would die in an endless war? "Hold position," he ordered. "As long as we can move and shoot, we stay." Then, something appeared on the tactical display. New hyperspace signatures. A lot of them. "Captain, we have incoming vessels," the sensor officer said. "Reading 147 ships." mixed Vrin and Kalthos configurations. Sir, they're not extremists. These are the moderate fleets. They're broadcasting on our frequency. A new face appeared on the view screen. Ambassador Thalrix, but now wearing military armor. Captain Han, the Vrin diplomatic fleet has arrived. We received Dr. Nam's transmissions. We've seen the evidence. We're here to help defend the truth. Another screen opened. Hive Speaker Korvas, flanked by Kalthos warriors. As are we. The Kalthos Council fleet stands with humanity. This manipulation has cost us too many lives. It ends today. Han felt relief wash over him, but it was tinged with worry. This could trigger a civil war among your people. Moderate against extremist. Are you prepared for that? We are prepared to do what is necessary. Thalrix said firmly. No more lies. No more manipulation. We fight for truth today. The moderate fleets moved into position alongside the humans. Vrin ships flew in formation with Kalthos vessels for the first time in centuries. Not as enemies, but as allies. The extremist commanders were stunned. Their communications channels filled with confusion and rage. How could their own people fight alongside the enemy? How could they betray their species? But the moderates didn't fire immediately. Instead, they broadcast on all frequencies. Dr. Nam's data, the evidence of manipulation, the truth about the architects. They showed their own people the lies that had sustained the war. In the extremist fleets, confusion spread. Some ships began to question. Some broke formation. But others, too consumed by hatred to accept the truth, pressed forward. The battle became chaotic. Extremists fighting moderates. Moderates trying to disable rather than kill their own people. Humans holding the center. Protecting the ruins. It was messy, tragic, and necessary. Captain Lee Nari led her fighter squadron in support of the moderate forces. All fighters. Target weapon systems only. These people are victims of manipulation. We're not here to slaughter them. We're here to stop them. On the ground, extremist forces managed to land assault teams near the ruins. Commander Choi's Marines engaged them in desperate combat. Sergeant Im Do-yoon held a critical choke point with just 5 soldiers against 30 attackers. We're not letting anyone destroy this place. Do-yoon shouted over the weapon fire. Every person who died in this war deserves the truth. We hold. Admiral Kwan had taken command of the orbital battle. He coordinated the mixed fleet with skill, positioning Vreen and Kalthos ships to support each other's weaknesses. Shield ships forward, attack vessels behind. We fight smart. We fight together. The turning point came when a group of extremist Vrin ships, after seeing the evidence broadcast repeatedly, simply stopped fighting. Their commander broadcast to the entire battlefield. What are we doing? We're killing our own people to hide the truth that we were manipulated. This is madness. All Vrin vessels in my battle group, cease fire. We've been lied to long enough. One by one, extremist ships began to stand down. Not all of them. Some were too far gone, too invested in the hate. But enough changed sides that the tide shifted. The remaining extremists, now outnumbered and facing a united front, had 2 choices: retreat or die. Most chose to retreat, fleeing into hyperspace. Those ships were disabled and their crews rescued, even as they cursed their rescuers. When the battle finally ended, the fleet hung in space, damaged and exhausted. 23 human ships were destroyed or disabled. 47 Vrin vessels lost. 31 Kalthos bioships dead. Thousands of lives sacrificed for the truth. But the ruins stood intact. The evidence was safe. And more importantly, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Captain Han stood on the surface of the ruins world, looking at the memorial being constructed. Human, Vrin, and Kalthos workers labored together, building a monument to those who died defending the truth. Ambassador Thalrix and Hive Speaker Korvas joined him. The war is not over, Thalrix said quietly. There are still extremists. Still Those who refuse to accept what we've learned. But it's ending, Corvus added. The majority of our people have seen the evidence. They understand we were victims of manipulation. The fighting continues in some sectors, but it's no longer a war. It's a police action against terrorists and criminals. What about the AI systems? Han asked. The ones the architects left behind? Agent Kang has teams hunting them down, Thalrix replied. We're finding them throughout the sector, hidden in old facilities. They're being destroyed, one by one. The architects are truly gone now. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the memorial take shape. I want to show you something, Han said. He led them to a section of the memorial where names were being inscribed. Human names, Vryn names, Kalthos names, all mixed together. This is everyone who died in the final battle. We're not separating them by species. They died fighting for the same cause. They deserve to be remembered. Together, Corvus's antennae twitched with emotion. 300 years of war. Millions dead. All because we were too proud to question our hatred. And it took an outside species, one we thought was extinct, to show us the truth. Don't give us too much credit, Han said. We almost destroyed ourselves too. We understand how easy it is to lose your way. The difference is, we got lucky. Someone managed to stop our wars before we went extinct. We're just trying to give others that same chance. Dr. Nam Sujin joined them, looking tired but satisfied. The historical committees from both species are working together to revise the records. They're teaching the truth. In schools now, children growing up will know their cousin species, not enemies. It will take generations. But the healing has begun. 5 years later, Captain Han Minho, now Admiral Han Minho, stood at the same memorial. It had grown much larger. Flowers and offerings surrounded it. Families from 3 species came to remember the dead and celebrate peace. A group of children ran past him, laughing. Vryn, Kalthos, and human children playing together without fear or prejudice. They had no memory of the war. For them, cooperation between species was normal. Lieutenant Park Jiwoo, now Captain Park, joined him. Nostalgic, sir? A little, Han admitted. We lost a lot of good people, but we saved millions more, Park said. The Vryn Kalthos Terran alliance is strong. Trade is flourishing. Scientific cooperation has advanced all 3 species. This is what we fought for. Han nodded. You know what I think about when I look at those children. What, sir? I think about the old legends. The ones that said humans were too dangerous to exist. The ones that said, we only brought destruction. He smiled. They got it wrong. We're not just capable of great violence. We're also capable of great compassion. We can fight when necessary, but we fight for something worth protecting. Peace. Truth. Justice. That's the real human myth. Not that we're unstoppable warriors, but that we refuse to stop trying to make things better. The sun set over the memorial world, casting long shadows across the names of the fallen. In orbit above, mixed fleets of 3 species trained together, preparing to defend their hard-won peace. The galaxy had learned that humanity was real, not myth. And more importantly, they had learned what humanity truly represented: hope, determination, the stubborn belief that even in darkness, even in war, even in hate, peace was always worth fighting for. The old legends were wrong. Humanity wasn't only capable of destruction. They were proof that anything, even species on the brink of extinction, could choose to change, could choose to be better, could choose peace over endless war. And that was a legend worth believing in.